So let's start with today's lecture. Welcome, everybody. I see that the room is filling up. I will give a short introduction. Warm welcome to today's lecture, the second event in our series on digital sustainability transformation of, by, and for the TUM, organized by the Professorship of Public Policy at the TUM School of Governance. Last week we focused on sustainability and university, and today we will turn to the second big transformation covered in our lecture series, namely the digital transformation. So my name is Markus Sievert, and I will host this event together with the whole team: Lea Buchholz, Lind Rüther, Sophia Schmidt, and Stefan Wurster. And we're really happy that Florian Rampelt is today with us. So hi, Florian, from our side. Before I introduce Florian to you all, maybe what is the plan for today's lecture series? First, Florian will give a talk titled Future Skills, Empowerment and Openness as Key Drivers of Sustainable Digitalization in Higher Education. And we invite you all to actively engage with us on this topic and with Florian's arguments. In order to do so, please use the Q&A function in Zoom. So please send us your questions. You can do this either by name or anonymously. Although, yeah, we will always forward the question as said without referring to your names, but your names will be displayed after Florian answered the questions and we click on question answered. So if you want to make sure to stay anonymous, please click on the respective radio button. So just to be clear on that. In addition to our expert talk, we will also have another guest with us later in the evening. As said, one of the goals of this lecture series is also to introduce student-led initiatives at the TUM to a broader audience. Last week we had Plant a Seed with us. This time we will have TUM on Ecosia, who will join us at the end of the session. Also, similar as last time, we will record this event and we'll make it available on YouTube channel of the Bavarian School of Public Policy later on in the next weeks. So these were the introduction and the organizational points. So let me briefly introduce Florian Rampelt to you all. Florian Rampelt is Deputy Head of the Office of the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung and the Managing Director of the newly funded AI Campus at the Stifterverband. Within the context of the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung, he works mainly in the field of peer-to-peer strategy consulting and also coordinates the European activities of the group. Super exciting new topic of the AI Campus. There he is actively involved in building up a new learning platform on issues related to artificial intelligence in cooperation with several other partners. Interesting, Florian did his BA and MA at the University of Passau in Bavaria. He has a BA from Governance and Public Policy and an MA in Education. Before joining the Stifterverband, Florian, among others, also worked at the Kirin Open Higher Education Institution. There he was developing and evaluating innovative teaching and educational resources. So Florian, many thanks for agreeing to give this talk today. The floor is yours. Looking forward to your presentation and the talk afterwards.
Markus, thanks a lot for the kind introduction. It's always a pleasure to join lecture series, but especially when it's in Munich, because actually I'm also born in Munich. So I have a very close relationship, although I'm calling in from Berlin today, where I'm working on the different projects that frame the background for what I'm going to share with you this evening. When I got the request from Markus and his team to talk about sustainable digitalization, I thought for a while, am I the right person to talk about that, because looking at Ecosia, who are going to join later, there are definitely more, let's say, resource-oriented, natural resource-oriented topics and agenda points that could be targeted in such a talk. And that's definitely not my expertise, just to frame expectations at the very beginning. I, although decided to join because I believe there are some key factors and some key components for sustainably framing the future of education and the future of digital education. You saw that already in the title of my presentation. I believe that empowerment, especially student empowerment, is really important, that a certain set of skills, we call it future skills, is key for success in future environments, no matter where and what. And that openness, I sometimes call myself an open education enthusiast. That openness really is a key driver for sustainable digital higher education. So I hope, although my talk is going to be a little different regarding the topic compared to probably others from this lecture series, I hope that I'm able to inspire some of you. I hope that I'll be able, to raise some questions and provide some insights, and I'm really looking forward to the discussions that are going to follow. So I'm going to share my screen now. Just give me a nod if that works. Does it work? Perfect. So I was introduced already. I have a background in different fields of expertise and work. I'm going to introduce that in just a few moments. As I said before, I want to talk about future skills, empowerment, and openness as key drivers of sustainable digitalization in higher education. When I join in conferences where I talk about different fields of my work, I always say I'm wearing actually 3 hats. My first hat is Stifterverband. Stifterverband is a German NGO, actually based in Essen, with an office in Berlin where I'm working, that has been committed to consulting, networking, and promoting improvements in the fields of education, research, and innovation policies since 1920. This was just after the First World War, when there was no public funding available at all for education and research. And Stifterverband, for example, funded some of the most important journeys into the Antarctica in order to, get better insight and have better research available in the context of environmental impacts of the human society. So we have a very long history also regarding sustainability questions and research funding. What is really important for Stifterverband is, as an NGO, a non-profit organization, our members are mostly for-profit organizations. It's DAX companies, it's mid-sized companies, it's donors and other individuals who have joined forces in Stifterverband in order to jointly shape the future of education and research. We also think that we can sometimes play a role in innovation regarding these fields. Some core projects at Stifterverband are targeted at the digitalization of education, especially at the digitalization of higher education. And I represent both of these projects. As said before, I'm Deputy Managing Director of Hochschulforum Digitalisierung, which is the German forum for higher education in the digital age. I've been joining HFD in 2018 in order to jointly orchestrate the discourse on higher education in the digital age. We want to be an innovation driver. We want to inform, advise, and connect stakeholders. And I believe some of the aspects that we are targeting there are also related to the sustainability of joint innovation. 1.5 years ago, I started another project that becomes bigger and bigger every day, and more important for sure regarding my field of work. It's called the AI Campus, or as you can see my background, KI Campus in German. I'm targeting AI skills and data literacy for everyone. I believe that open and innovative learning opportunities can really frame the future of education, especially in Germany and Europe, with an educational ecosystem that differentiates from others that we experience around the world. But let me start with the aspect of empowerment and student empowerment with a background from the work we do with our HFD communities. The HFD network has been implemented since 2014 with the aim to take collaboration in the center of teaching innovation. We have more than 600 members, mostly teachers, lecturers, professors from more than 160 higher education institutions throughout Germany. We have an online community, I guess now it's over 2,000 users. We have different formats more than ever since 2020 that digitally support teaching and learning throughout Germany and Europe. With all these formats that we're implementing from the very beginning, a key question was, what are key innovation drivers for our community and for our ways of collaborating? And one idea was that we actually strongly believe that students are key innovation drivers, not only for the agenda of the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung, but also for the sustainable development of higher education, of educational approaches throughout higher education communities. So in 2018, I implemented the Digital Changemaker initiative, and we actually had a kickoff of this initiative in Munich at Technical University of Munich in the summer of 2018. We believe that we need to play part in establishing strong student communities that go beyond individual institutions and that go beyond individual political agendas. We believe that we need to do that in order to ensure a key role in our community and in our community events. So for Hochschulforum Digitalisierung, since the establishment of the initiative, but especially since 2018, we always made sure that keynotes are jointly prepared by students and other stakeholders, that workshops take strongly into account the student perspectives, that panels have a diversity regarding gender, cultural backgrounds, but also the role of individuals coming from higher education institutions. In order to do that in a way that ensures a diversity of perspectives, we work with yearly cohorts of digital changemakers. So we are building since 2018 a continuously growing community of changemakers and local groups who ensure the sustainable implementation of educational innovation in institutions. For example, in different regions throughout Germany, local changemaker groups have started, their local initiatives. For example, some of them targeting questions of resource-oriented sustainability and its connection to digitalization measures within educational institutions. Next to that, we also try to reframe the roles within higher education institutions. And once again, which is really, it's just by accident, TUM has taken a forward-looking role in that aspect. You had a strong student leadership in the last years already, and built on initiatives like the student chief information officer at Technical University of Munich. We initiated a student digital officer initiative implementing student roles in higher education leadership throughout Germany. And I think this is really crucial to reframe roles, to ensure participation and empowerment in order to really shape future-proof concepts of how education is perceived and how education is developed for our society of the future. What is really important in that aspect as well is that you don't only look at TUM in Munich, but you make sure that you have different kinds of educational institutions that collaborate, that you have students, that you allow students to talk to each other no matter where you come from, and that you allow for collaboration formats that take into account the perspective from bigger universities, smaller universities, private, state-funded universities, and different educational and topical backgrounds. After some time, we thought, yeah, new roles are cool, but is that really driving sustainable change? Is that, really reaching a broader community? I do believe, yes, it is to a certain extent, but I do also believe that student empowerment also needs new formats. And we have been implementing new formats also since 2018, for example, with a very small ideation workshop. We called it that time Hack Your Campus already, but it wasn't really a hackathon. We implemented first local hackathons with partner universities since 2019 that took place in local communities, in local institutions. But 2020 changed everything. 2020 was the year of, digital teaching and learning. And I also believe a year of digital innovation. And we tried to somehow become part of that. I myself, with HFD Topics, participated in one of the most inspiring events that I ever joined in my young 30 years, the Us versus Virus Hackathon, which included in total more than 28,000 participants who discussed on an eye-to-eye level new approaches towards all different fields of our society, education being only one small aspect of that. And I believe that in order, to really shape a sustainable future, we need such new formats that ensure an eye-to-eye level in innovative environments, but also ensure a sustainable implementation of ideas that are implemented within such formats. After that participation, we thought, what could we actually do together with our students with a focus on digital higher education? And very spontaneously, within only a few weeks, we initiated the Semester Hack in May 2020, where we could reach more than 1,000 participants, mostly from Germany, because it was mostly German language events, who jointly co-created educational innovation on all different kind of aspects. What was really important and really nice to see is that we were not only able, to ensure for 2 days co-creation and collaboration, but we got the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research on board to provide some funding until the end of 2020 in order to further develop some of the best ideas that were selected by a jury. One key aspect of sustainable innovation is you should not only implement short-term innovative formats, but you need to think from the very beginning about the mid and long-term implementation, about programs that ensure that this is being done also after these agile short-term events that we see all over. After the first event, we initiated a second global event together with the European Commission, because in the second half of 2020, Germany was leading the presidency of the European Union. Within the DigiEduHack, a global event, we hosted the main stage event in Berlin, but also a next second semester hack, reaching around 400 students only from Germany and thousands throughout the world. Also there, we got another funding from the German Academic Exchange Service with projects that have just pitched a few weeks ago their ideas and the implementation of their ideas following the original event in November 2020. So to summarize, in order to achieve sustainable digitalization in higher education, we need to take students seriously, we need to empower students, and we need to create new and different roles within higher education institutions. We also need to implement new formats in order to jointly think out of the box, to dare to dream, and to sustainably implement new approaches towards higher education. What we at Stifterverband believe is that the future also requires future skills, especially for the digital workplace, but also for participation in society overall. In order to frame the discourse, in order to support locally and nationwide the active development of Future Skills Initiative, we created our own initiative together with many partners, be it ministries, be it companies, be it foundations. The Future Skills Initiative includes data literacy education aspects. It includes entrepreneurial skills. It includes innovation hubs at higher education institutions that are all aiming at one goal: strengthening the skills of tomorrow that include a broad range of different skills and competencies. We believe at Stifterverband that in order, to sustainably prepare for the future workplace and future society, we need a process towards new curricula in higher education and lifelong learning beyond the formal higher education institution. As a new curriculum, we call it Curriculum 4.0, we understand a curriculum that takes up the process of digital transformation in a targeted manner, both at the level of content and the skills and competencies to be imparted. Actually, additionally to that definition, I also believe formats play a key role, but I'm going to talk about it later on when I introduce to you the AI Campus Initiative. What is really important, and unfortunately, I didn't have that pyramid that we developed in English, but as I looked at the names participating today, I think that should be fine. What is really important is that the set of skills and competencies that we perceive as an overall set of future skills includes a very broad range of literacies. We do need to support specialists. We do need to support experts. For example, in the field of artificial intelligence, user experience design, robotics, many other aspects. We do need to strengthen data and media related skills, data literacies, information media literacies, AI skills, and many more. But we do also really need to differentiate between the subject-specific skills and skill sets and an interdisciplinary set of basic skills, of also soft skills that are very crucial for future societies, but that are not technical at all. I just wrote today with a few partners on an English translation of the Data Literacy Charter that I'm going to introduce in a few seconds. And we talked for a very long time about the role of values, responsibilities, ethics, and other aspects. And I believe this is really crucial, that we need skills that also empower us to reflect what is going on in our workplace and what is going on in our everyday life. Data literacies are one of the key aspects that we want to support within Stifterverband. We believe that data is key to our future. Thus, we believe that data literacy, as the ability to deal with data in a planned manner and to be able to consciously use and question it in the respective content, is crucial for any student of this moment, not only of the future. This is why we strongly support the acquisition of data literacies for students of all subjects. And I hope that all of you have taken data literacy courses and other learning opportunities already. We believe that it's crucial to develop interdisciplinary and cross-faculty concepts to establish networks nationwide, institution-wide, and on a European level. And we believe that it's crucial to create a common understanding of what data literacy actually means. We initiated an initiative with the Data Literacy Charter, first in German in early 2021, and we're just about to globally extend this initiative because so many came back to us and said, oh, this is really important, this is really cool, we want to support this, and we want to jointly develop concepts for transmitting data skills for the future. One core aspect that dives a little deeper into a certain branch, into a certain field of technological skills, but also a certain and very crucial aspect of the ethical reflection of technical and technological developments is artificial intelligence. As said at the very beginning of my talk, I have been lucky to be allowed to implement a learning environment, a learning platform on artificial intelligence, the AI Campus, since the end of 2019. And I believe that based on some core values, the AI Campus is driving innovation, cooperation, and openness as a key to sustainable impact in digital higher education and overall educational ecosystems. I don't have the chat here at the moment, but all of you could now start typing in www.aicampus.org. and you're able to see the beta version of the AI Campus, also in English, available already since summer 2020. Checking out what we got available there. The AI Campus has been established 1.5 years ago in order to pilot and test a digital learning ecosystem that focuses on a certain set of skills and competencies. When we started with the AI Campus, that set of skills and competencies was focusing on AI, on artificial intelligence, basics, topic-related formats. It was not so much focusing on data literacies. In 2020, the discussions and the discourse about data became much more prioritized. Of course, also due to all the data-related developments that we faced in digitally enhanced education in times of COVID-19. And we thus were asked by our funder, the German Ministry of Education and Research, and other stakeholders to also focus even more on data literacies, on data skills within our learning opportunities. And we have already implemented some learning opportunities, especially in German at the moment, on data literacies, additionally to AI courses and other offerings. What I really believe that is crucial for the sustainable development of education in the future is that we appreciate the fact that different learners have different needs, and different needs mean different formats, which actually has to do also with the resources that formats require. A short video or podcast requires far less resources and technical components than a big course, a massive open online course, or other formats that need a really strong educational environment in order to perform. So at AI Campus from the very beginning, we said massive open online courses, and blended learning formats are at the heart of what we do. We do believe in the future perspectives. We do believe in also the sustainability of more traditional formats that have been implemented in the last years already. Online courses can be really helpful to certain learners, but we should never develop such a format without thinking in two other directions as well. Every online course that we develop can be split up into different learning nuggets. We, for example, developed last year a podcast, Dr. Med KI, which is a podcast on medicine and AI, which then further developed into a course. And in the next year is going to further develop in a micro degree, bringing together different modules on the topic of AI and medicine. And I believe that this is the future. I believe that we are thinking far too narrow very often in the formal educational contexts, and that we need to broaden our mind in order to target the needs of all learners, in order to ensure participation and in order to reduce inequality regarding educational opportunities, which is a key aspect, in my opinion, in the context of sustainability of education. Next to that, and probably the most sustainable aspect of everything that I'm doing is, I said it at the very beginning already, openness is a key to sustainable learning ecosystems. The educational ecosystem in Germany, but also Europe, for a very long time has been framed by ivory towers, has been framed by independence, and has been framed by a perception that my knowledge only belongs to myself. And my expertise is my expertise, not a community-oriented expertise, except you paying for it when you buy the article that I wrote. I believe that openness needs to become a key part of any educational institution. And I believe that we can make that happen, especially in Germany, where we have a strong role of the state funding most of educational approaches, especially in school education and in higher education. Everything that we developed with the AI Campus so far is published under an open license. Our educational resources are published by a Creative Commons license. It's the CC BY SA 4.0, which allows to use, share, and adapt everything that we publish. You are able to take it into a course of TUM without needing to care about, copyrights. One of the questions that Marcus asked me beforehand, did you ensure that all your pictures, do you have the right license in order to be published in a live stream? You wouldn't need to care, because the license that we are putting under our content is so open that you can use it anywhere. We also believe that it is important that this accounts not only for the nonprofit, but also the for-profit sector. I myself believe I don't lose anything if from my nonprofit initiative, a for-profit further education institution in Munich, in Stuttgart, or in Cologne uses my stuff in order to strengthen AI skills and competencies, for example, in the workplace. This was a really interesting discussion with higher education institutions last year. What I also believe is important for sustainable innovation is that you allow for the remix and the transformation of your material. Because what is true today doesn't necessarily need to be true tomorrow. With conservative traditional educational components, you are not that easily able to remix, to reframe, and to redevelop educational material. Sustainable learning ecosystems need to allow for the redevelopment of educational components, taking into account the expertise of the original inventor, of the original creator, but also allowing for a redevelopment without having to ask. In only 1.5 years of the implementation of the AI Campus, I believe that this approach towards cooperation and openness has proved to be quite successful. We have not only developed open educational content that is being used throughout Germany in all these institutions that you see on this map. It's also being used already in Luxembourg, who is a strategic partner of the AI Campus. A course in English, the Launchpad to Fundamental Questions on AI, has been copied towards a platform that is targeting an audience on the African continent, reaching totally different target groups than we are aiming for. But I believe not having to redevelop the same content again is really a key aspect of sustainable education. What I'm really proud of is that we also have partners in Hessen, that we have the Ministry of Hessen and universities there as partners who actually reused our open source technologies. They developed an e-government campus, which is actually also supported by TUM, that is using the learning platform and the learning environment that we developed under an open source license, is putting its own corporate identity on it, and is just giving it out to another community. So open educational resources and open source developments are key for sustainability in educational innovation. And I believe with the AI Campus, we proved that to a certain extent already. As a conclusion, I would like to summarize my thoughts and my approaches towards sustainable digitalization in higher education with four key thoughts. The first one, not too surprising, collaboration is key. I really believe that it is necessary to overcome the boundaries of disciplines, institutions, and countries together. And it's time to doing that now. I am strongly convinced that it needs openness as an attitude and as a strategy. We need to always remind ourselves others have great ideas too. We need to be more open to copying the successfully tried and tested within our own institution, but also elsewhere. I do also believe that participation and empowerment can really support sustainable educational success for the institution and for the individual. The needs of students, but also the needs of teachers are central to sustainable digitalization in higher education. We can and we need to take that more seriously. And I'm happy to share with you some of the approaches that are possible next steps. Last aspect is we need to get out of our comfort zone. The digital world and the digital working world is only as good as we make it. The sustainable future is the future that we frame. And for future-proof, digitally supported education, we need new ideas and concepts. We need to think out of the box. We need to work out of the box. And we need a lot of courage to go down this new path together. And I hope that some of the courage can be shared amongst us, and that maybe there's one or another impulse that we can jointly base upon and jointly develop next approaches with TUM, within TUM, beyond TUM, and within the overall digital educational system. Thanks a lot. That's it from my side.
Thank you very much, Florian, for this great overview of the work that you do at the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung. Also touching upon a variety of key issues, I think, that we can now address in the Q&A session. I invite you all the participants out there, the audience, to hand in some questions. We already had some from the team, but the audience should get active as well. But we do the icebreaker maybe, Florian. So the first question would be, in a sense, maybe you can say something about the state of the art of digitization at universities, how you would assess it, and maybe also what changed over during the pandemic now, and what role did the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung play now, over the last 1.5 years?
I think the overall state of art is better than we expected. That's like one of the key insights that we got in the last year, especially infrastructure issues and others, where we found solutions in a much better way than in many, for example, school institutions. At the same time, there are many open ends. And Hochschulforum Digitalisierung is playing a key role in order to frame these open ends, in order to ensure peer-to-peer support, and in order to, to strengthen discourses on key topics. For example, before I entered that lecture series, I just came from a meeting with more than 60 stakeholders from throughout Germany, also from TUM, who were discussing digital examination issues. And all we can do is allow for collaboration and exchange, open up Zoom rooms, breakout rooms, MetaMost communities that allow for, cross-institutional exchange. I think that's the key role that we're having. In the last year, we also, of course, implemented many different support measures. We established webinar series with hundreds of teachers, especially joining. We established toolboxes and other websites that really, try to collect good practices from throughout Germany and beyond. And we are continuously working on, identifying the pressing issues and developing formats that help the community to work on these issues.
I see that some of you had raised a hand in the audience, but I would kindly ask you to post your question directly in the Q&A chat so that we can see it there. Question came up now in the chat or in the F&A or Q&A. So can you say a little bit more about the virtual spaces for collaboration at the KI campus?
It depends on the kind of collaboration. So the core of the AI campus is innovative learning opportunities, which we believe are especially the formats, online courses, podcasts, videos. Podcasts and videos, you do not need a virtual space. You download the podcast on Spotify, you watch the video on YouTube, or you do all of that on the AI campus as a portal that collects different formats. The courses that we provide are mostly implemented in a learning management system that is provided to the AI campus by Hasso-Plattner Institute. Hasso-Plattner Institute is a faculty of the University of Potsdam that has in the last years developed a learning management system that is globally successful with OpenSAP. So it's a learning management system that SAP is using for its further education. WHO is using it, and OpenHPI is their own system. So they have millions of learners in their system, very basic learning management system that we are using, and I'm really proud of that. Within the AI campus, we are further developing that LMS into an open source LMS. That has some aspects of virtual collaboration, but definitely needs more. So we are also working, on implementing more peer feedback opportunities and other aspects. For example, at this very moment, we're including Jupyter Notebooks as a tool, which is, for coding and other tools. So it's a learning ecosystem that we're developing step by step. Next to that, we're using Mattermost, a very simple community tool. It's like Slack, only open source, and you can host it yourself. That we mostly use for more than 100 teachers, professionals who work with us on the learning opportunities. And we're developing other community approaches. And of course, we're also using Zoom and Microsoft Teams, for ad hoc webinars, series with different stakeholders.
Another question, I think, which neatly ties into the last one is also how you view the scope to enhance the digital space for students. Maybe if I understand the question correctly, it points also out and giving digital space to meet outside the classroom, also engage virtually, all these kind of issues. I think we are pretty good at connecting the way we do now, but having creating more space that more easily mimics the real world interactions might be related to that question also.
So I always say blended learning is the better online learning. I surely am not a believer in a fully online learning. I believe that we have a certain situation at the moment that we need to react to. But I also believe working on many innovative learning opportunities. I'm working with virtual laboratories, remote laboratories, and all that kind of stuff. It's fascinating what you're able to do with virtual reality approaches within different, serious games, ecosystems, and others. But I believe that these are great, motivating, and inspiring approaches, but the space for students to interact still has to be in person as well. Regarding the digital space, I'm not sure. At the one hand, I always want to try out new stuff. For example, last week I used Wonder for a virtual exchange. And then I had Wonder, Zoom, Miro boards, and a Menti Umfrage. You know what Menti is probably for students. I thought, shit, now I really use the toolbox that I have. But is that really enhancing the digital space for participants? Not sure. So I can't really give you a proper answer to that. I believe that students should play a much stronger role in deciding for the right digital spaces that they need for a certain learning process. I think we do not really go that way. We have a certain offer and we use that offer because it's available. We do not look at the needs first and choose the offer based on the needs. So that's at least one learning I had for myself in the last year, that I much more need to listen to the needs and only then decide for the right offer or tool that I'm using in digital spaces.
Yeah, for me, the key message was kind of like that you're not a believer in kind of like online only.
And I believe in online, but not in online
only. There's another maybe a critical question also in the chat. So saying like that this mix of digitalization and entrepreneurship might attract a really narrow segment of society, which is mostly dominated probably male and white. So how do you avoid, or maybe put it differently, how do you ensure diversity in the participation in the resources, in the educational material, and so forth?
So it depends on the format. I think easy language, for example, is just, easy. And as you say, not too fancy, not everything is entrepreneurial or innovative. But easy language and basic tools as a key principle. For example, the 1,000 students that we reached last year through our first hackathon, it was very simple for them to connect through a MetaMost community, to register, and then to just, find the groups themselves. It's also, again, the openness for tools. For example, in the hackathons, we always told the communities, you yourselves in your groups decide for the right tools to use. We have some suggestions, but in the end, it's you have to decide in order to feel comfortable with it. And thirdly, which also accounts for what we do, for example, with the AI campus, is that you need some, positive examples. For example, with the board of the AI campus, we tried to have a 50-50 male and female representation within our board. We almost made it. Unfortunately, like we requested half, and then 2 women declined, I think, but it's almost a 50-50 representation. I really like that. But we also are working on new approaches. So there are such inspiring women out there in the field of digital innovation. From the German Chancellery, Kirsten Rolf is part of the AI Campus board. Christine Regitz from SAP, the 2 of them just decided last Thursday that they're going to have a sub-board looking at the topic of inspiring women to learn AI skills. And yeah, I think you need some targeted approaches that are driven by positive example.
Thank you, Florian. Another question which goes in the direction of the hackathons that you mentioned. And so the question is that the audience has noticed that these types of events become more popular and more popular over the last years. And so the question is why they are so efficient. And maybe we can also add, are they really so efficient as they are? So I remember a quote from Meredith Broussard, for example, in her book on intelligent artificial, where she said like, nothing came ever out of a hackathon. So why is it that we have these events? Are they really efficient? What is key factors of these successes, if you would say they are successes?
Yeah, a format never can be like an end to itself. That's easy to say, but you need to, I said it before, you need to think about the next steps before you start even with the first step. Coming from an educational background, I know that issue, but I believe if you really closely think about the next steps and you allow for opportunities for implementation programs, for community support in the next steps of such innovative formats, be it innovative or not, like a hackathon, you can ensure a sustainable implementation. One of my favorite examples, for example, is the Corona School. It's an initiative of students for school students to give them like support in their day-to-day learning. And they joined the AI campus with the idea to make a Corona school engagement part of curricula within teaching education. And with only half a year, because they had the support by us and by the ministry, they were able to implement it in a few educational institutions. So concrete next steps following the first step are the most difficult aspect, I believe. And very concrete timelines and milestones are really crucial as well, because too often we meet to discuss a certain topic, but we forget to think about, okay, and what do we get out of it? What does the individual get out of it in a certain and clearly clearly structured amount of time? If it's somewhere in the future, if we only think about the Vision 2030, we will never start with the implementation 2021. So this is really crucial to combine all the visionary aspects that I'm a strong believer in with the concrete action in our current environment. We can only frame the future if we really closely look into our current situation and concrete actions, quick wins, I always say, that we can, measure, that we can watch in only a few days and weeks.
Another question, maybe rather tapping onto the question that we had before, in a sense, kind of like, can you recommend certain tools or avenues and so forth for students to connect with each other on different topics, getting to network in a certain field of expertise? Do you have something at the Hochschulforum maybe?
Like the formats we have at Hochschulforum are formats, like to meet digitally in Zoom environments. I think like you should just start finding a joint topic of interest and then meet very basically in a video environment, for example, or start using whatever tool you want to use for online collaboration, but just start doing it and be transparent about it. That is key, not the actual tool that you're using. Of course, there are some that are fun, but I think sometimes the fun aspect is, too strong in the focus, too strongly in the focus. Toolboxes, you can find a lot of tools on our info sites.
Maybe another question that came up in the chat was the question about the soft skills that you mentioned, the skill set that we need to develop. Maybe you can can become a little bit more concrete. What would you say are the crucial soft skills that need to be added in, for the digital future? And maybe talk a little bit also connected to the digital literacy charter that you're having.
The data literacy charter.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the data literacy charter, clearly says key component is to be able to critically acquire, reflect, evaluate data. And, in order to being able to use data and to make data available in a reflected way. That for sure is a key component. Looking at, for example, the examination issue, it is really important for me to understand what is being done in a certain context with my data. So that I believe really is crucial and became more crucial than ever within the last year. So I believe data literacy really is crucial. I also believe that soft skills like Ambiguitätstoleranz, ambiguity tolerance, being able to act in insecure environments is really, really important. And it's difficult to make that part of formal educational programs, but I believe it's possible. For example, through more project-oriented, challenge-oriented teaching and learning that, that builds up insecurities in a constructive manner so that we learn that we can actually act successfully in insecure environments. And I would never negate that digital transformation isn't, providing insecure environments.
We have another question with regard to the resources and kind of like the infrastructure. And the question is kind of like that, there's a broad agreement with the key concepts that you presented and the key ideas, but that it often is, the infrastructure that is lacking at the department level, at the university level, but we also see it, of course, in schools, etc. What is your opinion in that? Is it, because you said it's, better as we make it, but kind of like the practical, the idiosyncratic experience seems to point in a different direction.
Of course, there's still a lot to do. I'm also a supporter of the Digital Pact for Higher Education, which would ensure that the federal government provides funding for infrastructure on the local level. We need to invest billions in infrastructure. That's clear. I mean, most of you know, Willy Brandt many years ago wanted to implement Glasfaser. What is Glasfaser in English? Infrastructures. And then the TV lobby somehow took over and we don't have it now. So we are far behind, for example, because we don't have fast enough internet throughout Germany in all different regions, not only in the cities, but also in the countryside. And so there needs to be much bigger, much stronger investments for sure. Fiberglass, yeah, thanks a lot. Fiberglass investment, for example, there needs to be investments in infrastructure. There needs to be funding available on a long-term level for those who are not able to afford the necessary tools and equipment that they need for their educational success. I know of many educational institutions who provided like certain funding opportunities, but mostly ad hoc. And we need long-term programs in order to ensure that the access to technology does not increase the inequality in access to education. So yeah, there's a lot to change still, for sure. But at the end, I would, it's a gray zone. I'd say higher education has gone through the Corona pandemic much better than expected and better than school education. This does not mean that there is not a lot to do. And we need to do a lot regarding digital innovation, not only for virtual environments, but especially for the on-campus environment.
Mm. You said in the beginning, of course, and that the sustainability aspect is not a core aspect of your expertise in the sense, but maybe you can bring it, try to bring it in with the question in the chat about the, and you addressed it already, kind of like the inequality aspect of the digitalization in higher education and maybe also education in general. Yeah. And maybe we can also bring in the green aspect, so the ecological dimension, because I think there's a broad fear among sustainability people that a stronger focus on digitization will, at least draw some important oxygen away, and in the worst case also leads to greenwashing, etc. So maybe kind of like if you have an insight on the green aspect as well as the social inequality aspect of digitization.
So regarding the social inequality aspect, you mentioned before, Marcus, that when I moved out of Bavaria, that was in 2015, 2016, I moved out because I was working at University of Passau, experiencing many refugees at that time who weren't able to access education, who were facing strong inequalities and discriminations against themselves. And I wasn't a digitalization expert. I was an expert in the internationalization of higher education. And through those experiences, I became very much focused on the access to higher education. I believe that much of what has been tried ever since has not proved to be successful to reduce inequalities. Massive open online courses, for example, prove to target those who already have access to education. but I believe there's still a lot to be done. And for that, I, for example, work together with Kiron Open Higher Education still and other stakeholders. I would say, again, it's a gray zone. Some educational approaches increase educational inequality. The experience from last year, of course, is the increasing educational equality because of access to infrastructure, especially. But I believe if we invest in infrastructure, if we invest in devices and other aspects, it can for sure allow for better reach. My best example always is the Open University of UK. The Open University of UK has been a distance university for many years. The Open University of South Africa has been doing distant teaching for, I don't know, 50 years. Nelson Mandela studied there. They used at their time study letters, big packages of paper that were sent to students who could then study at home and send it back to their institutions. And I believe the open educational institutional aspect can be strengthened a lot through digital approaches. So with the example of the long history of open educational institutions, I believe that in the mid and long term, digitalization can play a strong role in decreasing educational inequalities. At the moment, for sure, this is often not the case. I fully agree, and I fully experienced in the years of building up educational programs for refugees, the borders that we are facing. I just published a paper in Oxford Journal on, it was called No Longer a Lost Generations, reflecting on digital educational access of students in Lebanon and Jordan. And we had quite some disappointing results regarding fully online programs, but we had quite some encouraging results regarding, for example, skills programs, blended skills programs that allow for digital access to material, for example, in study centers, combined with, on-premise educational support. So the combination is key. This is why I always say blended learning is the better online learning, but the combination of allowing for better access to educational material through digital technologies and open licenses with personal and individual support is very crucial. And personal individual support does not mean personal AI-based support only, but it means the individual teacher, the individual social worker who still knows best how to cater the needs of the individual facing certain inequalities and discriminations.
Thank you. So maybe we have time for at least 2 more questions, maybe 3. Maybe another one, a question, maybe a thought experiment. So given that you have all the money that you need, what would be the 1, 2, 3 key projects that you would implement? So kind of no constraints. What ideas would you have?
So what I'm really excited about at the moment is that there is actually a lot of money in the system. It was just, I think, published last week that the German federal government is investing 600 million euros until 2025 on a national digital learning environment. Very crucial. It's not a learning platform. It's not another LMS. It's an environment to ensure interoperability, transparency, and cooperation. And I really believe this is a game changer, or it can be a game changer. I'm working very closely with the team that is establishing that ecosystem. And I believe there are, there are at this point of time, really important steps forward that are being taken at the moment. Firstly, so digital environments that allow for openness, that allow for interoperability, and that allow for cooperation. That really needs to change in Germany and in Europe. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be very bureaucratic at times. But if we bring together the strength of bureaucracy and legal requirements that we have in Europe, which is not bad all the time, with a more agile approach towards innovation, I think we can really frame in the next years a European digital learning ecosystem that is going to change the world. And I would invest in that.
I very much look forward to that. Another question: what, as kind of like future scientists or future lecturers to be, what are basic rules that the audience should have in mind in order to keep, stay up to date with the developments that are happening so fast right now?
Listen to your peers. You're not alone. Listen to your peers. Peer teaching and learning is not a concept that is broadly implemented in higher education. It's so crucial. Listen to your peers. They have great ideas. You have great ideas. Share them and jointly further develop your teaching and learning, firstly. Secondly, copy. Copy what's out there already. You can still be a strong scientist. You can still develop the best new ideas ever. And at the same time, openly and transparently copy what's out there already. I think it's such a shame that copying has such a negative branding. And that's part of my agenda, is making copying like the thing to do in higher education of the future. Thirdly, be a lifelong learner. Never stop learning. And that is a concept that not only accounts for future teachers and scientists, but for everyone. But I really hope, and I believe that everyone who is joining this lecture series already has this attitude of being a lifelong learner. So let's learn together, and through that, jointly frame a sustainable future.
Maybe I can add on the copying. I fully agree, but maybe do not copy in your exams and in your written thesis. We have this quite so often, but I would reframe it in a way.
Of course not.
Standing on the shoulders of the giants.
But you asked for the teacher, right? You asked for the future teacher.
No, it's true.
The future scientists could also copy, but make clear what you have been copying, of course.
To ensure that the right pieces of the talk will be, taken out of this. Maybe one last question, and then we also will invite our guest from Tomon Ecosia to join us. So I'm not sure whether you have something to say on that, but maybe we can also frame it on with regard to digitization again. So question was, what universities are role models in Germany or Europe, to innovative, sustainable projects, but maybe frame it more in digital projects? What are the kind of, where should we look at?
Eberswalde. Eberswalde is a university in the very north. It's a University of Applied Sciences. It's called University for Sustainable Development Eberswalde. It's such a cool name. And they're really doing a lot on sustainability, but for example, also on the combination of sustainability and digitalization. In our first Digital Changemaker cohort, we had colleagues who came from that University of Applied Sciences, and we also had workshops and other aspects on the combination of sustainability and digitalization. So they would have chosen a slightly different input for today's lecture series. But yeah, I think it's really cool that there is such an institution that, as a founding idea is looking into sustainability. Regarding innovation, was in new innovative projects, I think there are many out there. I wouldn't like to say it's this university or that university. I think there are great communities. There's also that Bündnis Nachhaltige Entwicklung or something, I think, that are really doing a lot in different educational institutions. Yeah.
So
it's Nachhaltige Entwicklung, I think, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a network for sustainable development.
Exactly. And if you check them out, you can find, so many different higher education institutions that are involved and stakeholders that are involved in this.
Maybe the last question now, kind of like also with regard to how can our students become engaged in the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung, because you know a strong focus was also the Digital Changemaker program, and your one of your key messages was also that student involvement is a key and essential element. Can you say something? How can interested students become engaged, with you or other content?
Apply as a change maker. We have a new cohort every year. Join our community events. The events are for free, which is cool. So for many other conferences, it's difficult. You have to ask your professor or someone else to get funding and stuff. It's for free. If we have, for example, an event in Berlin, maybe one day we can do that again on cool premises. You can also send us an email and we can see if we can support, for example, the travel costs. And join our working groups. For example, I just had this community working group on examinations. I think it's 6 students who joined that working group as well. I think this is really cool. We have calls very often, calls for experts. And that's the thing, we have calls that are targeting students. And it's great to have students as change makers in the student program. But we have so many other calls that are targeting everyone, that are targeting experts. And my aim is to ensure that students are perceived as just some experts like all the others. And this is, I think, really crucial. Really think closely about your expertise and then think how you can contribute with your expertise to our community work. We're really happy to always have student experts in our different activities as well. And I just shared in the chat the Bündnis Bildung für nachhaltige Entwicklung that probably most of you have heard of before and was shared in the information for the seminar.
Thank you, Florian. Thank you very much for this really positive, inspiring, engaging talk that laid the groundwork, I think, for many other discussions that we will have. We have now a really good overview also about the developments, about future initiatives, etc. So thank you very much for your time, your energy, your efforts that you put into this talk. We really much appreciate it. Maybe you can stay on because we now have our student initiative, and I want to welcome Cedric Belau. Maybe you can, there you are. Hi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So the floor is yours to introduce TUM on Ecosia. We're excited.
Thank you very much. I'm a member of the Umweltreferat at the TUM and a member of the project TUM on Ecosia. And we've prepared a short video. I'm going to share that right now. And after that, it's including a little presentation. And after that, I'm here for any questions of you, of course. Wait, I think I forgot to share the sound with it. All right. In case you don't hear anything, please write in the chat.
What about the solution that is right in front of us? There is a magic machine that sucks carbon out of the air, costs very little, and builds itself. It's called the tree.
My name is Cedric. I'm a 4th semester mechanical engineering student, and I welcome every one of you to this short presentation. After the very dramatic intro you just saw, I intend to inform you of our project TUM on Ecosia. In case you're not familiar with Ecosia, now the time has come. Ecosia is a search engine that provides search results from Bing and their own algorithms. Every time a user clicks on an ad, income is being generated. With roughly 80% of the profit, tree planting projects are supported. So basically, with every 45th search, one tree is being planted. Most of them in global biodiversity hotspots. At that point, you might ask yourself, huge servers must consume a lot of energy. That can't be sustainable. Well, you are totally correct. That is why Ecosia has their own solar plants, big enough to cover their need twice. I met a lot of people who doubt that this concept could not work. But luckily, Ecosia is fully transparent. Financial and subsidy reports are monthly published. The one on your screen is an overview for March 2021. Just like Google, Facebook, and almost everything concerning the internet, Ecosia has data privacy regulations. But unlike Google and Facebook, Ecosia does not store search queries, shares data with advertisers, uses external tracking tools, and creates user profiles. Ecosia does none of that. With the start of our project, the TUM received its own tree counter. In front of you is our latest monthly tree report, stating over 16,000 searches from TUM students. Our goal is to inform as many of you about the possibility an internet search on your smart device can have on our climate. Starting from private devices all the way to being the standard search engine on TUM Computer. We as a very large university and role model are able to have a huge impact. So please consider downloading Ecosia on your device through the TUM link and make it your search engine for daily internet surfing. Thank you for listening. I'll be right after the video in the Zoom call if you have any questions. And here I am again.
Thank you.
So yeah, we made it a little video so it's easier for us as well for the dramatic intro. So are there any questions? It's a short presentation, but the important points you can see on this flyer right here, which is I think on your website as well, right?
If it's not there yet, we will put it there during the next week.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
definitely you will find it there. Are there any questions from the audience? If not, I have one, definitely. Because I used Ecosia for some time, like, downloaded it. I was super excited about this search engine. But then, became lazy after 2 weeks or 3 weeks and switched back because kind of like I had the feeling that I spent a lot of time also looking for the results and the findings that I was looking for. But I know that I can learn, or maybe it's not the problem. It's definitely not the problem of the search engine. It's rather my problem of not using it correctly. So what tips do you have, or is it kind of like, how should I engage with it?
May I ask at what time you used it? Was it like a few months or a few years?
It was probably like a year or 1.5 years ago. So
since maybe 2020, Ecosia is putting their own algorithms with it. So you can see search results getting better. But I think the problem is that we are very used to the perfect solutions from Google, which are based on basically tracking. I mean, I assume you use Google instead, or maybe, I don't know, Firefox or something. But they all have the external tracking, which I mentioned, which leads to those results. And if you use DuckDuckGo, for example, or other very highly secured search engines, you will face the same problems. But I have to say it's not really a problem for most people I know using Ecosia. you always have the option. Yeah, maybe you at first it seems a little bit unfamiliar, but I think you get to know it very quickly. And I use Ecosia as a pop-up, as a widget on my phone. So for daily search requests, which like 90% of my search requests are something about food or politics or something like that, that every search engine has good results with it. So and I've also installed Chrome for every like more complex search queries.
Is there more?
Yeah, there's a question.
Yeah, there's a question. Yeah.
When you think the big search engines, especially Google, how has this project changed your view on them, considering the profits they must be generating through users? Very cool idea, by the way. Thank you very much. Ecosia is running, I think, for 10 years now, maybe. I'm not so sure about that one, to be honest. But they have quite some experience by now. They're a very small company. So that's why basically you can see, it depends on month to month, of course. But like every company, a lot of income goes for taxes and spreading the word in this case is making others look at Ecosia and have us basically doing things like this. Operational costs as well, because they have their own solar plans. But yeah, Google, I think Google, especially Google, is going in the right direction, and they're trying to do a lot of stuff very good. For example, their servers are all in green energy as well. Yeah, I think they still Google, for example, uses a lot of its income for technology research and. Yeah, and they have way more money because of data. Every stored data they can sell and do everything with it. And yeah, I know it sounds lame at first, but basically Ecosia is like every other search engine. It's just a search engine, and the fun part is, which you can't see on the screen right now, but if you use Ecosia once, you have a little green. Wait, I can do that for you real quick. You have a little tree counter in the top of your. So this is Ecosia, the page. It's like Google. You type, I don't know, just TUM, and you get the normal search results like Google had. You have ads at the beginning. You have Wikipedia, pre-screen. On the top right, you have that little tree counter that tells you how many searches you've done. And like I said, every 45th search roughly finances one tree. That's a fun little option, I think. So you can calculate now how many trees I've planted. That's about like maybe 12 or 13. And why we should motivate the students. To be honest, I think there is no real motivation. The only motivation you need is to download it through the TUM link and to contribute to this counter you just saw. So we can say, TUM is planting this number of trees by only searching on the internet, which as students do constantly. So I think we're the perfect group to do it.
That was my question also, kind of like that you via downloading it through that link, then we can see how much the TUMs.
Yeah, exactly. The link is only for the counter on the TUM itself. And otherwise the LMU, but the LMU won't win since I think they have one person working on the project. We have like 7 motivated people. We're working with other universities in Germany as well, Münster, Hanover, and others. And one question I oversaw is where the trees planted. So mostly in global biodiversity hotspots. So that means that they are not only good for the environment, but good for the social parts in the country. And maybe they're supporting farming in the region and building up the water systems in the area, maybe because it's a very dry area. The very great thing about Ecosia, they have weekly or monthly blogs about their projects and where they're planting trees. Yeah.
Cool.
So just please consider it, download it for fun, use it, and then you still can see I don't see any bad aspect, to be honest, by using it. So if you download it, you can have it as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That was again, as we said, kind of like one of the main goals of this lecture series is to, showcase, illustrate, give some space to these great student-led initiatives at the TUM. And I think this is a really cool project, and it's kind of like, as you said, the charm, I think, is it's really easy. You can easily contribute to that, and it doesn't cost you any additional efforts.
Exactly.
So follow this advice. We will post it online. We will connect you. The video is super cool. I really like the beginning. Again, thank you very much for this. So the time is up. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Next week, our lecture series continues. We are now entering the phase of more concrete topics. Next week, our guest speaker will be Christian Felber, who will introduce and talk about his idea of an economy of the common good and what this means for universities. So thank you very much. See you next week. Bye.